Happy Friday, everybody,
Happy Friday.
and
Okay.
welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us all the way from San Francisco, Rachel Garlin.
Happy Friday.
And here in the Twin Cities, where Anthony and I are based, it is 4 p.m. Central, which is our favorite time of the week on Friday
Mm-hmm.
because it kicks off our weekend where we invite different guest artists to revisit old records with us and answer your questions live. And it looks like Joe is joining the party too from Minneapolis. Hi,
Hey,
Joe.
Joe.
And Connie from Richfield. Glad to be back. We're glad to be back.
Yep.
And then Chris on the deck in Savage, Minnesota, smoking the ribs and
Ooh,
enjoying Minnesota craft beer. Wow.
excellent.
Okay, so we're all going to Chris's house after this.
Yep.
Um,
I want to
well,
hear about those ribs.
exactly. Well, I'm not enjoying any ribs right now, sadly, but I am enjoying some Minnesota craft beer. I'm
Oh,
having
look at that.
I'm having Indeed Loretta's Dark Lager. So
Oh,
Indeed, right from Minneapolis. So
excellent. Excellent.
and Anthony, are you enjoying a beverage on this
Yes.
Friday?
Yep. In celebration of our guest being in California, I got a California beer here, Sierra Nevada, hazy little thing IPA. I thought would be a nice, refreshing beverage today.
Excellent.
Perfect.
And Rachel, are you enjoying any? I know it's a little earlier where you're at, but
It's a little earlier, but when in Rome, I went ahead and I'm drinking the Blood Orange IPA.
Mm,
oh, nice.
Same
excellent.
color scheme as my album, so I just
Oh,
Oh,
I love it.
by the way,
yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think more of our guests need to do like a pairing of like drink with album art on our show. You're
That's a
setting
whole
the
new
bar really high.
chapter. I love that.
Yeah.
Trendsetter.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then Lynn is joining us from Greenville, South Carolina, the locally
Ooh.
crafted Saison and
Ooh.
toasting you in Greenville. Well, cheers
Well,
to all of you out
yeah,
there.
toast me
Cheers.
right back. Cheers, everybody. As Ellen was saying, this is our weekly musical happy hour. So if you're out there, let us know that you're there. Tell us what you're drinking. Send your questions along for Rachel, your comments as we listen to the music, because it really is more of a party when you join in.
For sure. And we're also really excited to be back because it's been a couple weeks since we've all been together.
Mm-hmm.
We took a break last week for the Labor Day holiday. And with the summer, some of us were traveling here and there. But we're so happy to be back with you for this fall season of Back Catalog Listening Party. Rachel Garlin, great songwriter that I've been a fan of for a long time. And we're going to delve more into her catalog as we revisit her 2002 release. But before we do that, for folks who are maybe less familiar with your music, Rachel, maybe you can give a little brief origin story, 2-minute version of where you grew up, how you fell into making music, and in particular where this record sits in your discography.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I grew up in Berkeley, California, right across the bay, and I lived in a house with my parents and sister that was full of records, LPs, folk music, instruments. And so I always had music around me, but I was really more into sports than music. I played basketball all the way up through college.
Nice.
And after college, I started writing songs and I was a school teacher. So I taught in the local middle school and I connected with my former guitar teacher, Lisa Zeiler, who was in the folk trio Rebecca Riots. And Lisa
Mm.
encouraged me to not only write the songs, but to record them. So she produced my first two albums, including this one. And I started opening for Rebecca Riots when they went on tour. In fact, one of my first tours was to the Midwest, and we played in the Twin Cities.
Hmm.
And I opened for them. And then eventually I quit my teaching day job and went on the road full time.
Excellent.
Nice.
And where does this album? You said this album was produced by one of the folks from Rebecca Wrights, but where does this sit in your discography?
Yeah, so it's my second album, and the first album after having gone on the road a little bit and sort of realized I was doing this professionally, and so in some ways it's the first album of record where I was okay. I'm an artist. I'm actually doing this. It's not just a nighttime and summer holiday thing.
Mhm.
So in many ways, I look at this album as the first, even though technically it's the second.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Well, we're really excited to have you here and to revisit this record. This came out again in 2002. It's called 5 Minutes. And the first track that you picked to feature on today's show is Sight of You. Is there anything you want to say about it before we take a listen?
I'll just say that it was locally inspired. You know, there's a lot of regional parks here in the Bay Area, and this one happened after a night sleeping out in the open in Redwood Park in Oakland Hills.
Excellent. All right, well, let's give it a spin. This is Rachel Garlin, Sight of You, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Looking up at the planets in Cancer's June. Another night in the hay and we're under the moon. Boy Blue is beside us guarding his sheep. You're already fast asleep, but I'm watching the moon as she creeps across the sky. I woke up in the middle of the night and knew why I admire the moonlight is 'cause she dances with the sight of you. The day before we had gathered to celebrate passing through summer's gate. We say goodbye to the spring rain. We say goodbye to the roses of yesterday. And we welcome the spirit of those who had passed away. I woke up in the middle of the night and knew why I admire the moonlight is 'cause she dances with the sight of you. The sight of you in the moonlight. Sight of you in the moonlight. The sight of you in the moonlight. In the morning we wake to an airplane sound. There's someone gliding above us and looking down. Is it a pilot who's teaching his child to fly? A father who's taking his girl for a ride? Or a soul flying west to the other side? I woke up in the middle of the night and knew why I admire the moonlight is 'cause she dances with the sight of you. In the moonlight. The sight of you in the moonlight. In the moonlight. The sight of you in the moonlight. In the moonlight. The sight of you in the moonlight. In the moonlight. The sight of you in the moonlight. The sight of you.
All right, Rachel Garlin with Sight
Nice.
of You from her 2002 release 5 Minutes, which we are revisiting with Rachel today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, and loving the accordion vibes on
Yeah.
that.
Right on. That's
Yeah.
Julie Wolfe playing the
Oh,
accordion.
yeah,
So,
she's so amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and just I was just digging the kind of Latin inspired groove there. The bass was really
Mm.
kind of driving that one and had me going there. Who's playing the
That's
bass on this?
that's Andy Stoller from the Tracy Chapman Band.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he flew in from LA, I think, and it was great. I was noticing him too, like on that bridge breakdown. I remember when we came up with that idea, like the whole song had that steady thing. Da, 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 and then the bridge. Da, 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 da,
Uh-huh.
da. It was just so fun when that happened in the studio. I remember the moment.
Wow. So that
Yeah.
actually was something that wasn't necessarily baked into the song, but once you got the personnel together, it happened.
Yep, the groove found
That's super
itself.
cool.
Yeah.
And was that kind of vibe kind of what you had in mind when you were writing it? Do you write on the guitar? Were you, singing it like that if it was just you and your guitar?
Yeah, I probably implied it in some way, but it usually is just me and my guitar. And so I don't have a lot of instrumentation ideas, really, just my voice and the guitar. I really rely on the musicians that I collaborate with to write their own parts, to bring their own expertise and ideas. I mean, to say that it's a collaboration is like a huge understatement. The song sort of gets rewritten,
Mm.
by the group in the room. And that's why I love recording live with people.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this was live then? You just all hanging out in a room together?
Hanging out in a room, playing the song. Yeah.
Sweet,
Yeah,
sweet.
it's great.
I was definitely feeling that West Coast, like Southern,
Oh yeah, the California vibes
yeah,
strong on
yeah,
that.
very
Yeah.
strong on that.
Yeah.
We're digging that. And then Joe said Julie Wolf was incredible. She works with the best and makes everything even better. And I'd concur. Julie Wolf, a great musician, side person, and producer now too, and has worked with many of our past back catalog guests and hopefully some of our future ones, including, Dar Williams and Katie Dahl and Deirdre McCalla and Indigo Girls, Anita Franco. Again, hopefully
Yes.
future guests on
There
the
you
show.
go. I love
There you
it.
go.
Yeah. No, Julie and I met on this album and we became dear friends and never stopped working together. So she produced my 6th or 7th album, Mondegreens, and we play live together a lot. And she's here, she's local. So that was a real, actually, this album, really expanded my community of beloved musicians who I've known ever since.
How were you put in touch with, these are pretty heavy hitters?
Yeah, well, my producer Lisa Zeiler had been touring, and so she knew a lot of people. And most people, with the exception of Andy, live here in the Bay Area or lived here at the time. So
Nice.
the woman singing harmony is Green, the artist Green, and I love what she did at the end too with the outro. And she was improvising in the studio, and the lines that she wrote, I took those lines on the road, even when I was playing solo, and I would sing, her harmony part. And it's just like I see how much creativity goes into an album, and that it just continues on down the road.
Wow. And when you brought these songs to the studio, did you do much pre-production work with Lisa so she knew what people to bring in, or did you just kind of bring in the songs?
We did pre-production. We used to meet at her house, and it was a really nice part of the process. I would always just play the song, live, acoustic, as I had written it, and we would talk about what would serve the song, and she had a real ear for that. I don't consider myself a great producer. I'm happy to co-produce with people and bring what I bring, but for people who can really hear the instrumentation and the levels and the arc of the song, I just appreciate them so much. And Lisa was like that.
Excellent. And with these songs, were these ones you had kind of road tested before you brought them into the studio, or did that happen more after the album? Because I'm always curious to see how the songs, all songs evolve and change. They're like organisms, right? That move along the way. But I'm curious to know whether you've been singing these, and then after you recorded them, where you're like, oh, I have to sing these differently now.
Totally. That's a good question. I think it was a combination. I mean, what they say about albums is the first album, you take your whole life to write it. And then the second album is between the first album and the second album. It's a much shorter time. And so, I think these songs were written, and then I road tested them, and they changed in the studio. And some of the ones that made on the album were unlikely candidates. One of the songs we're going to play is Tom's song. And I wrote it thinking it was a very sort of personal song. I didn't know if it was something I'd even do on stage. But when I did a show at the Freight and Salvage, it ended up being a song that certainly played an important role in the show. And so Lisa and I thought, I know it's a 5.5-minute song and it's unusual in its form, but I think it wants to be on the album. And so it wasn't until we played it live that we realized we wanted to put it down on the record.
Interesting. And did it have something to do with kind of the reaction you got from the crowd, or was it just did the energy change when you played it in front of people?
Yeah. all of those things. It's a story song, and it's very specific, and I didn't know if it was too specific, but the response from people was a meaningful response, and people commented after, like, what was that song about the tin can telephone? They remembered it. It was something they remembered, some of the imagery. And so I think it was the response, and true to form, that song became an important part of my repertoire that I took to festivals, and I actually won a couple of songwriting contests after submitting that song. And so it's like the most unlikely piece of work that you make in like an unconscious moment becomes something that has a more public life. So, unexpectedly.
We're looking at a picture now here of Rachel performing at the one and only Newport Folk Festival, which is one of the biggest folk festivals anywhere in the world. Is this one of those festivals?
Yes, it is. I got to open up the show on Sunday morning of the Newport Folk Festival, looking out on the water, really big, lively audience, and it's a real highlight for my career.
And it was based on the song, Tom's song?
Yeah, Tom's song.
Well, what do you say we play that one next?
Sure.
So we can kind of put a song to the name, so to speak. Sure. Is there anything else you'd want to say about this before we take a listen? Besides what you've said.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I was a school teacher at the time I was writing this album, and I had returned to my hometown to teach. So I was in Berkeley, and I was trying to find housing. It was the early 2000s. I couldn't find a room to rent. Eventually found this great room on the second floor of my parents' house, and moved back into my childhood bedroom, was teaching at the local middle school, walking to school every day. And it just brought me back to childhood. So one day I was sitting out on the front steps. I was doing my writing pages, and stream of consciousness started remembering and associating what was happening that day with what had happened, 10 years prior in my youth. So that this song came from that experience.
Awesome. Well, let's give it a spin. This is Rachel Garlin, Tom's song, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
There's a blue suit and a cherry picker on my street. There's a white bowl in the green leaves, that's his hard hat helmet. A red X marks the spot for his suspenders as he reaches across the wire for to mend it. And the safety lights are spinning with a radio as another truck arrives across the road. They're just like little kids playing telephone as they test the wires. Is anybody home? I remember playing like that long ago. I took the 100 feet of string off of my kite, and then I rode around the neighborhood in my hard hat helmet with my 2 tin cans and my bright blue checkered bike. This is Campbell's soup calling out to SpaghettiOs. This is sweet peas and I'm calling pumpkin pie. And I'm sending you this message over a shoestring or a laundry line, and I'm wondering, is anybody home? In the middle of the block I found a neighbor's house. He was the only man I knew who stayed at home, writing legal briefs while he took care of his little girls, 'cause their mother worked in the city till the rush hour was gone. You don't look quite old enough to babysit, but come on in, you can call me Tom. I'm sure my little girls would love to play with you and talk to you if you showed them how to use your tin can phone. And that's how neighbors start to feel like your family, even when you've got a happy home. We spent our Saturdays at the ball game. I got to wear Tom's Dodger jacket all day long. This is Campbell's soup calling out to SpaghettiOs. This is sweet peas and I'm calling pumpkin pie. And I'm sending you this message over a shoestring or a laundry line. And I'm wondering, is anybody home? Years since I'd come around, 'cause I was busy up at junior high playing basketball with my new friends in my newfound crowd. But I noticed as I passed by that the porch was full with some relatives I knew from out of town. I saw my neighbor's mother, she was a grandma of the little girls, and people gathered round, sad. I had heard my neighbor Tom got pneumonia, and later it had turned to something worse. But I had no idea that you could die from pneumonia, so I pedaled home to find myself the truth. This is Campbell's soup calling out to SpaghettiOs. This is sweet peas and I'm calling pumpkin pie. And I'm sending you this message over a shoestring or a laundry line. And I'm wondering, is anybody home? Now there's a blue suit and a cherry picker on my street. There's a white ball in the green leaves, that's his hard hat helmet. A red X marks the spot for his suspenders as he reaches across the wire for to mend it. As he reaches across the wire for to mend it. As he reaches across the wire for to mend it.
All right, Rachel Garlin with Tom's Song, which again, as we mentioned, landed her on a lot of great songwriting contests, and can see why. Some great storytelling in that song. It's from her 2002 album 5 Minutes, which we're revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And if you like what you hear, you can buy the album and also all of her other great records at rachelgarlin.com. And man, one of the things that stands out, aside from the great song story, as Chris Jetner just said, instrumentation pretty awesome too. That's what I was going to say, is that wonderful flute. Tell us a little bit about that and that choice, because you could have any kind of melodic instrument fill in those lines, like a violin or fiddle or whatever.
Yeah. The flute player is a man named Hector Zapana, who was a family friend of ours and who played a variety of different South American flutes. And, something about, I think, the lyrical reference to the tin can telephone gave us the idea that, some sort of instrument that transported air and messages, through a cylinder was what we wanted to try. So he had a couple different flutes. You can hear the higher ones and the lower ones. And we ended up keeping it, just the two of us playing the song. So
that was a great choice. And Wiley says pure visual song. And I think I know what you're saying there, Wiley. Like when I hear about a tin can of SpaghettiOs, I can smell it, I can taste it, it's almost one of the old adage, what is it, like the more specific you get, the more universal things are. I mean, it really, like, at least for a certain generation in a certain place in time, it really does resonate. And I think that's a wonderful thing that it caught on like it did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it's nice that you mentioned that, as I do songwriting workshops, and one of them is called. I just realized, something like writing through a tin can telephone. I can't remember what it's called, but
Nice.
it's all about sensory writing. I do a variety of workshops, but the one I used to do a bunch of years ago was about sensory writing and how you bring in those the visual, all of the senses.
Yeah, it really is
Tell a
powerful.
story. Thanks.
And it
Yeah.
looks like Jimmy is a Hector fan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, Jimmy was a part of this album and this period of time too. Jimmy and I played a bunch of live shows together with him on bass, and he played on my first record, and
Nice.
certainly inspired some of the songs on my later records. So we have a musical history together.
That's cool. So you
Wonderful.
mentioned, you teach a songwriting workshop. Like, is the writing piece something that you've always done? Like, even before you were out there professionally performing, is writing something that you've always done?
Yeah, since like sort of following college, when I became a teacher, at first I taught general humanities and sort of history and social studies and English. And then more and more it became like a writing teacher, literature. And so I think, yeah, the teaching and the songwriting have always been dovetailing. And I've really been lucky in the past couple of years to get to teach these workshops at like adult song camps and retreats and conferences. And I love it because I miss classroom teaching. And this is a nice way for me to mix it up. And during COVID, I did a bunch of online Zoom classes too.
Nice. And I assume if we directed folks to your website, rachelgarlin.com, they could learn more about any workshops you may have coming up.
Exactly. Yes.
Great. We'll put that link in the comments as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
And you mentioned your morning writing pages. Are you? I don't know if that was just a sort of ritual that at the time when you were teaching and when you wrote Tom's song, or is that something that you do every day now too?
It's a sometimes habit that I have. So I'll go through periods of time. I'll return to Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and I'll remind myself how generative it is to wake up and write pen to paper. Her recommendation is 3 pages every morning. So when I'm on my A game, I'm doing that. And it is true. The brain download can really loosen a lot of things. And I am kind of an unself-conscious songwriter in the mornings. I could write my morning pages. I could write a song. I could write a little ditty and really accept that it's sort of just like a shitty first draft. It doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be new. And I can do that first thing in the morning. As the day goes on, the critic really, really shows up at work in an annoying way. So I love the mornings.
Yeah. And we see a lot of instruments behind you, and we were laughing before we came on air because the banjo almost didn't make the cut as we were you were making sure your room was set up for the stream. And but we're glad that the banjo stayed. But you have a bunch of instruments.
Yeah.
So do you usually write on the guitar? Are there other things you like to write on to mix things up?
Yeah, I usually write on guitar, but again, for songwriters out there or people who are interested in trying out different kinds of creativity, I find that just holding a different instrument of a different size or a different pitch can really spark new ideas. So I make it a practice of trying to play instruments that I'm not good at and using them to, bring out different parts of my songwriting. I am interested in taking some banjo classes, as I mentioned, at the Frank Salvage from E.B. Layden. And, I think it's a beautiful instrument. Since both of you play, I was extremely, self-conscious about just playing one, just on the off chance you suggested I play something, which I would not. But no, I'm proud to have a banjo on my wall.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think what you're saying about, picking up an instrument that you don't necessarily play well to write is so great, because I think sometimes people assume you have to be proficient at an instrument to write on it, when really all you have to do is, it's just a vehicle to help with a melody idea, because really it's ultimately a song is music and words. So you can do that without an instrument too, for that matter.
Exactly. So, I really believe in this sort of, it's going to sound weird, but the power of the vibration of the instrument, so just like a hollow bodied guitar versus an electric bass versus a banjo ukulele, that it's going to just bring up different musical ideas, and I rely on that kind of interdependence with my instruments to, we jostle each other into new places.
Well, and I wanted to circle back then to this idea that your inner critic isn't present in the morning. And I feel like when you pick up an instrument you're not supposed to be good at, the kind of mental framework that you might put on your main instrument, I got to play these chords in this order and this, that kind of goes out the window.
Right.
And it's kind of similar where like you can kind of do it like, you almost have like a childlike approach to just the sounds that you're hearing.
Yeah, and I mean that's the key, just allowing yourself to return to just kind of a primal sense of musicality. I mean, I believe everyone can sing, everyone is musical, we can all move our bodies and be percussive. And for me, this is the real exciting part of writing.
Amen. Amen to that. I want to make sure I don't lose track of this comment we got, this great comment from Lynn.
Oh, yes.
Who said the album cover would make a great jigsaw puzzle. And
I love it.
She says, I'm a big puzzler, and I'm 100% with you, Lynn. That would be a killer jigsaw puzzle.
I love it.
I thought we might want to just, we could hear a little bit about this artwork and where it came from.
Absolutely. It's a painting by Eric Sable. Eric and I went to Berkeley High together. We both played basketball. And we both became teachers after college, and I pursued songwriting and he pursued painting sort of as our vocations. And this is a full wall size, very large canvas, and it actually hangs above our dining room table upstairs. And I saw it and I loved it. And the colors were vibrant, and it was sort of a little concrete, but a little abstract. And I think it vaguely represents Marin County, which is just over the Golden Gate Bridge from us. And yeah, it just really spoke to me. And I would love to make it a puzzle because I too am a puzzler. Yeah.
All right. Well, you put it in the universe now. I don't know what the process is, but I'm sure there's like some sort of way to make your own jigsaw puzzle. So you should grab that album art and
I like the suggestion.
And maybe you could scan that off of the physical copy. That would probably be the best way to get it. In which case, there it is. Here, I'll blow you up here so we can see that. As Ellen mentioned earlier, there are physical copies available, and you can get them by going to rachelgarlin.com, and I reckon you'd put a signature on it if they request it, and a little note. And it sounds really great. I mean, the recording quality is top notch, and if you're listening to this on YouTube right now, you're just not getting the full resolution. So I would encourage you to pick up a physical copy, or there's probably some high-res digital files available as well off your website, I imagine.
Yes.
And we should also mention that when you're there at rachelgarlin.com, checking out the songwriting workshops, buying that copy of 5 Minutes, that she also has, a pretty wide discography, including the album that she mentioned that Julie Wolfe produced, Mondegreens, which is wonderful, and her new record, which just came out called The Ballad of Madeline and Therese. And is there anything you want to say about the new record?
Sure. I'll start by saying it's a record. We made an LP. So it's digital too, but it's my first vinyl record. I wrote the 13 songs as songs, but after the album was done, I wrote a narrative to tie the songs together. So when I perform The Ballad of Madeline and Therese on stage, it's sort of part concert, part play, one woman show. It's in development, but we've released the album, and I've performed it twice as a narrated concert.
Excellent.
Oh, and I'll say one more thing. It takes place in the 1940s. It's a forbidden love story between two women who are living in Manhattan and trying to figure out their love and their identities.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, you can learn more at her website, which I just put in the comments, just rachelgarlin.com. Definitely go check it out. Buy a copy of both while you're at it.
And I know folks want to hear more music. I know I want to hear more music because, especially after hearing so much about your writing process. This next song you picked to feature on today's show is called Julie. Is there anything you want to say about this?
Sure. This is for your inner 13-year-old.
She comes out more often than I'd like.
Yeah. She's the one. So I wrote this inspired by interactions with a student of mine who's going through a tough time and really relating to the angst of that time.
All right, we're going to give it a spin here. Rachel Garlin, Julie, here on the back catalog listening party.
Goddamn, she said, another day in the life of me, no blade in her hand. She'd like to make a more graceful escape from here. She prays for quicksand. Julie, these rooftops are all that you've ever seen. No mountains, no snow. I know there's a life for you if you can just reach 17. Julie, I know. Don't quote me, she said to the reporter, but this school's jacked up. Some kids leave here with the key to the city where the rest of us get locked up. The rest of us get locked up. But Julie, these rooftops are all that you've ever seen. No mountains, no snow. I know there's a life for you if you can just reach 17. Julie, I know. Julie, I know. Your writing, it renders me silent. They say your poetry goes over well. You say it stops you from being so violent to yourself. So violent to yourself. Up on the roof, another night with a rebel crew. Some needed fills. Under the outcast shine of the city lights, practicing survival skills. Julie, these rooftops are all that you've ever seen. No mountains, no snow. I know there's a life for you if you can just reach 17. Julie, I know. Julie, I know. Julie, don't go.
Some great grooves on that. That is
Nice.
Rachel Garlin with Julie from her 2002 release 5 Minutes, which we're revisiting today on the back catalog listening party with Rachel joining us live. And yeah, I heard that bass again.
Yep.
Really, really beautiful, and some great guitar work as well.
Yeah. That's Nina Gerber playing
Oh,
electric
yes.
and acoustic. Yeah.
She's
And we always,
amazing.
when we hear fade outs, we always want to know, like, how long did it go? Was
I
it like
know.
another half hour?
I know. You always like choose the final lick that people are going to hear. You're like, okay, that one. Okay, then, move on. So, so funny listening to my records because I don't usually listen to my own music, and so it's this is a treat.
It's
Thank you
pretty
for
good, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, right?
It's fantastic.
Well, I'm really digging it. If you're digging it out there, then in addition to buying the record at rachelgarlin.com, you can also throw some stuff in, some stuff. By stuff, I mean money, in Rachel Garlin's tip jar. Unlike an actual physical tip jar, like at a bar gig, you have no option to give anything but money in that situation. Old candy wrappers or anything. So you can help fuel up for Rachel's next record to get some of those sweet studio sounds. And we actually have some photos, I think, from you in the studio.
Oh yeah. Let's see
Working
here.
on that.
We got
Um,
one here.
and this is a good moment to mention that if you are just listening to the show today and you aren't watching it live on YouTube with us, that you can always go to backcatalog.listeningparty.com. We archive all of our shows there, not just with the YouTube link, but also with where we share some of these images and links to some of the things we've talked about. And there is baby Rachel. Oh, in the studio. Look at that smile.
No, right on.
Must have been a good day.
It was a good day. We recorded this analog, the first 2 albums.
I was going to ask about it. You can almost just tell it's got that warmth,
Yeah.
It was reel to reel. And that was a real experience. I mean, editing on tape and really being so conscious of how much tape you're using, because I was on a shoestring budget for these albums and wanted to work with these really good players, and we had to conserve tape.
Right.
Buying the tape was like a budget line that we had to really consider.
Yeah.
Well, and so that means that fade out can also be a strategic thing. You're like, well, we'll just keep playing it, and whenever it stops sounding good, we'll just fade it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally.
I wanted real quick to you had mentioned this coming from, your time as a school teacher, and we've had a few educators turn musicians on the show in the past, and I guess I was just wondering about kind of your relationship with kind of the vocation of teaching and the vocation of songwriter as teacher. Is that something that do you feel like you're just still on the same path that you were as a teacher, just in a different form, or how do you relate those two careers at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do, in a sense, feel that when I'm teaching, I'm, improvising a lot. In the classroom. Like, I was never a huge planner. I'm still not a huge planner. So I think some of the skills of improvising and sort of like, working with the energy in the room, and it is an exchange, between people, whether you're at a concert, whether you're in a classroom, like a lot of that feels very familiar. I think when I was teaching full time, it was hard to conserve enough creative energy and take care of my voice, and like all of the things that you sort of press on as a teacher are resources you're kind of using up when you're trying to be an artist. So I did find it hard to do them at the same time, although I did for many years both. So now I'm a lot more selective about going into teaching environments, but I still love it, and I still really believe, there's an art and science to both of them.
And they're very closely related. Storytelling is
right.
how we teach.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we have a couple questions from folks out there wanting to know about your influences. Joni wanted to ask, you said you grew up around lots of music and LPs. What were some of your favorites and or early musical influences?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, my parents' records were folk music. The Weavers, Pete Seeger, Ronnie Gilbert, Joni Mitchell, and I listened to a lot of that music growing up. My own tastes developed into artists like Tracy Chapman, the Indigo Girls, back to Joni Mitchell, Sting, Paul Simon, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Wonder. And then I started listening to a lot of my friends' music, Rebecca Riott's, my friend Green. So I think that's kind of the scope. There's one other influence, which is that my mom is an immigrant from Scotland. And so I also listened to traditional Scottish music and actually recorded a traditional song on this album, 5 Minutes, a story song. and I attempted to pronounce the words with somewhat of a stylized accent that goes with the song, and that was fun. And my mom sang backup on that song.
Oh,
so
very cool.
That's
That's
so
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Well, and also, so I have to ask, do you speak any Gaelic or anything like that?
No. I know a few turns of phrase, and it's a brobrech munlich nechtedach. I can say things like that. But no, I mean, if anything, I'm trying to learn French and Spanish right now. I love languages, and we spent some time in Paris this summer, and I got back to French, which is also a very melodic, as you probably know, like language. So it's all connected.
Yeah. And Chris was also, in addition to asking about the musical influences, he wanted to know how long you have been playing guitar.
Yeah, let's say over 20 years, 25 years probably. My dad gave me a guitar that had been his, an old Gibson J50. He gifted it to me. It was a guitar that he bought when he was 16 in the 1950s in New York. He bought it from a pawn shop in the Bowery. And all my guitars have stories behind them. So I'm constantly learning, as I mentioned earlier. It's just all about confusing yourself and starting over. Like I'll put my guitars into an open tuning, so I really have no idea how to make a chord, and then I'll try to create something out of that. So it's a lifelong study.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to dig into more music from this record, 5 Minutes, which we have been revisiting today with Rachel Garlin on the show. But before we do, I do want to mention that this show is only made possible through all of you for participating in the show, and a special group of people who are our Patreon supporters. And these are the folks that donate every month and have been keeping this party going. This is our 176th episode.
That's a lot of
That's
weeks.
a lot of weeks. Yeah. And these are the folks that keep the show going through their support, and also get to join us for special after parties on Zoom with the guests and other cool things. They get the inside track on who's going to be on the show, and our new back catalog listening party pint glass, our founder's pint glass, which
It's hard to see because I'm
which we're mailing out now. So if you get on now on the Patreon, you will get one of these sent to you as well. We want to thank Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, Sarah C, CJ, and Wiley, and maybe you, if you would like to join the party.
You know what? We have a new patron that has not made it on the banner yet. Stephanie?
Yes, thank you,
Stephanie.
Stephanie just came on board this week. So
yes, we didn't get it on the banner yet, but we're giving you your shout out. Thank you all so much. And like Ellen said, we do have these little pint glasses that it's kind of a physical connection that we can have every week, and it's kind of a limited run. And so if you want in on that, you can find more at the patreon.com/backcatalog listening party. But mostly just, we appreciate all of you for being here. Music is so it's such a healing force, and every Friday at 4, no matter what happened during my week, I know I get to come and listen to wonderful music like Rachel's, and all of a sudden, magically, I feel so much better. It's pretty special.
Special vibrations happening, and we want to get to another song from the record, at least one more here, and this is Alternative Fuel. And what can you tell us about this song, Rachel?
So during the time when I was making this record, I was working with a fellow singer-songwriter named Melissa Crabtree. And Melissa had a great idea that we were going to go on tour together in one of the first veggie vans, the first biodiesel vehicles that were avoiding petroleum altogether and rolling on alternative methods. And so she wrote a great song called Biodiesel Van. And then we ascertained a biodiesel van and painted sunflowers on it and went on tour. And during that time, I wrote a sort of complimentary song called Alternative Fuel. And we took these two songs all the way from San Francisco to Jacksonville, Florida, playing along the way, filling up our van on recycled vegetable oil and talking to people about this brand new technology. And Melissa's music is beautiful, and her spirit has been a big part of my songwriting. And sadly, Melissa is currently missing. We don't know where she is, and it's been a couple of years that she has not been around. And part of why I wanted to play this song today was to remember her, shout out to people who remember her or might have known her. And if anyone has seen Melissa Crabtree, let us know. There's been a couple of different searches in the southwestern part of the country where she was living. And we know that she was struggling with some health issues and having a hard time. So Melissa's a wonderful person, and this song is full of joy and full of possibility. And I celebrate her, both of you and all of your listeners, for being part of a community where, we're with each other through thick and thin. And I hope that our paths cross again.
All right. This is Rachel Garlin, Alternative Fuel, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Keep the ketchup on the side. I'll bring the methanol and 3.5 grams of lye. And by tomorrow, we'll have alternative fuel. Into the methanol, you should dissolve all the lye. Then take the French fry grease and mix it with your sodium methoxide. And by tomorrow, we'll have alternative fuel. The insects are swarming, wasn't that our warning for global warming too? Oceans are rising, it's not a bit surprising. Glaciers are melting through. Inside your blender, the methyl esters will arrive. You can watch the glycerin separate before your very eyes. And by tomorrow, we'll have alternative fuel. Pour out the liquid, that's what they call biodiesel gas. Now take the glycerin, put it in a soap dish and take a bath, relax. Tomorrow we'll have alternative fuel. And by tomorrow we'll have alternative fuel. And by tomorrow we'll have alternative fuel.
Rachel Garlin here on the Back Catalog Listen Party with Alternative Fuel that she's dedicating to her friend and collaborator Melissa Crabtree, and they toured together in a van described in the song, veggie van.
Quite a lot of detail there of
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
it
that's-
fuel space.
It's almost like a how-to. Like
It is. You can follow that recipe to the line, and you'll end up with biodiesel gas. So
Like
we,
bards of yore, you keep the story going.
exactly. That song got picked up by Click and Clack on Car Talk.
Oh,
They played it. So
Nice.
and a couple other radio outlets got a kick out of it. Goofy song, but a real recipe, and also just a really fun process. As I listened to the recording, the bridge section where we're doing the ooze, we gathered around, a communal mic, and Julie Wolfe was there, and Eddie Luckett, and we just had a lot of fun recording that song. Sometimes, again, an unlikely candidate for an album. It was an underdog kind of a song, but you played it live enough, and there's energy. And it's just like, let's throw it on the album, and then it has this whole other life. So,
Well, what a great story that you were actually driving around in it and stuff.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
how long did that biofuel van last for you?
Yeah, great point. Because we toured for about a month, and then we kind of ran it into the ground. We had a biodiesel technician engineer with us, who was helping be the mechanic along the way. But yeah, it had some technical difficulties. But we really did spread the word all through Texas. We took the lower route, and people didn't know about these fuels at all.
This is 2002, people.
2002.
Rachel was ahead of her time, for sure.
People thought we were crazy to go on a road trip without petroleum.
Yeah.
But we did.
That's pretty amazing. That's really amazing. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. And again, it's important. And there's like some pretty heavy topics in there too. And glaciers are melting and things, but it's got that upbeat, hopeful, vibe. That the music is so special in the way that it can kind of give you two emotions at one time. And at the end, I'm feeling hopeful about alternative fuels, even if it's not the same ones.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
And Wiley says, "Love the Zydeco feel." Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And that definitely with the accordion
Yes,
in there, you
Julie.
get that vibe. Yeah.
Louis Wolf again, bringing it home. It's great.
So good.
Really fun.
Well, this has been such a treat to have you here on the show today. And I want to mention a couple things that if you are an old fan of Rachel Garlin's or a new one from watching today's show, and I know there's lots of you out there, you can pick up the record we've been revisiting today, 5 minutes, on her website, rachelgarlin.com, as well as her new album, The Ballad of Madeline and Therese, and all the albums in between. You can find them at rachelgarlin.com and learn about her songwriting workshops. And also, of course, you perform a lot, and you have a big show coming up right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're going to be playing at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, which is a beautiful theater with a great sound system. We're welcoming people from near and far because I'm going to be playing selections from my back catalog, partially inspired by this very show.
No way.
When you invited me on the show, you said, pick an album from your catalog. And I thought, okay, well, I have 9 albums. I got to look through them and figure this out. And while I was doing that, I saw some songs that I'd like to play live. And so the genesis of the show concept really came from this invitation. So thank you. And in return, you're both invited.
That's awesome. We got to figure out a way to get on the plane here.
I know.
I think you need to get a veggie band
band.
fired up. It's a road trip, banjo people, because I actually need 2 more banjos in my band. So,
well, we could certainly help you out with that.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds great.
Come on. Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, November 22nd.
That's awesome. And you said some of the people who played on the record 5 minutes will also be at the show.
Yes.
That's so great.
We're gonna bring back some of the old crew.
That's so cool. I'm so glad you shared that with us too. That we played a small part in that happening. That just makes me feel so good.
Totally.
Yeah, wonderful. So if you're out on the West Coast around just before Thanksgiving, want to check that out. Rachel Garlin at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, California. And our time is coming to a close.
I can't believe how
sadly.
fast this hour went. I think like the worse my week is preceding this, like the harder things
hour goes.
the faster this goes. This was a tough one. And man, this was so much fun. Rachel, thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been such a joy. And we want to thank all of you out there for joining the show and being a part of our conversation. Thank you, Connie. Thanks for another terrific show. And thank you all for being a part of it. If you liked it, give it the thumbs up on YouTube, direct more bots to Rachel Garlin. And also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do this every week. Not with Rachel Garlin, sadly, every week, although we could. She has a bunch of records.
Yeah.
But you can find out who we have next in the show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and getting those alerts. And Joni says, thank you, Rachel, and much gratitude to our amazing hosts. Oh, thank you, Joni.
Thanks, Joni.
Maybe you can live stream tickets to that show. Oh,
I like it. Yeah.
Oh, well, you let us know if that ends up happening. We'll make sure we get the word out about that.
Great.
And Rachel, mainly, we couldn't do this without artists like you saying, yes, I'll revisit my first record and talk about it. Not everyone wants to, dig back into their closets, and dust
there were
off.
some that I avoided.
Well, this was a wonderful choice, and I enjoyed the music so much. And I was not as familiar with this record, so this was really fun for me. So thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Yeah,
thank
you, Rachel, and thank you everybody out there. Really, it's the highlight of my week every week here at the Back Catalog Listening Party, and we hope to see you next week, same time, same place. And until then, cheers. If you have anything left in your glass, anyways.
Have a great week, guys.
See ya.